Gotta love your no cooling calls at 38 degrees in the morning. This particular gentleman called yesterday evening and left a message stating that the system upstairs did not appear to be cooling the house down. We'll stop by and see what we can figure out for him. If it is not an electrical or mechanical problem, we may have a little difficulty ascertaining what's going on unless it's completely empty with refrigerant or thereabouts. It will be hard to determine whether the charge is correct just due to the outdoor ambient temperature. Our system pressures follow our temperature, so hotter it is, the higher the pressure; lower it is, the lower the ambient pressure or overall pressure. So in this particular case, 38 degrees, looking at it in air conditioning mode, no matter what I do, it is going to look low. So hopefully it's an electrical mechanical problem and we can get him sorted out, but we'll find out directly. Oh, these caps are completely loose to the touch. These are compression fittings, so they really need to be on there tight enough to do something. Both of them. Just take off of my hand. So we are low on pressure. However, with the both of those compression caps loose, there's a good chance it leaked. They said they had another company replace the evaporator coil inside, or at least the air handler coil. So it looks like whenever they did it, they did not tighten those caps down. There's a good chance it just leaked through there. However, being that we don't really know for sure, we'll go ahead and get our detector and try to do a leak test. I don't hear anything or see any oil streaks on the coil anywhere. I hear some kind of maybe electric feedback or something. Thought I was hearing hissing. It still might be. Can't hear my wife talking to me, but you can hear stuff like that. So that sound I hear that I thought might be electrical feedback, it may be a little tiny leak that's just barely leaking. Yeah. We'll check this expansion valve too. So yeah, that's where our trouble is. And that's probably what I was hearing. I was hearing some kind of small little electric, it sounded like an electric feedback, like you'll get out of like a TV remote or something, just a real high pitched kind of whistle. Didn't sound like a hiss from a major leak, but that's what I'm hearing. And as I say, I don't know if the camera picks it up or not. Since we have a little refrigerant in it, those caps are not tight either. I never did the coil installation over here. Same thing, these are all compression fittings because these valves will leak as well, these service valves. So definitely found a leak on our expansion valve upstairs, but these guys, same thing, brass to brass fitting. It's a compression fitting, so if you don't tighten them down, they're not doing anything other than looking pretty on there. What we're going to do here is run it in air conditioning mode. So this is our suction and this is our liquid, and we're going to close this valve and let the unit run in AC for a little bit to try to pull our pressure down. so that way we can pump most of our refrigerant on the inside to the outside and try to save as much of it as possible. You don't want to pull these guys down into a vacuum, so we'll try to get it, you know, maybe 2 to 5 pounds of pressure, somewhere in that range on our suction side. That way we've saved as much as we possibly can without risking pulling it into a vacuum, because we know it is leaking, so we do not want negative pressure. So we're watching our manifold, letting the pressure pull down. Once we get low enough, we will disconnect power. I want to get it low enough without actually going into a negative, like right there. And we will close this valve completely. There we go. So we've saved as much refrigerant as we can. So we'll go upstairs and pop that thing open and see if it's just loose, or if the O-ring's missing, or maybe they put it in there and flattened it, or it could be cross-threaded. Who knows? We'll go find out. There's actually a gasket in there. Doesn't look in bad shape, but just a little gasket. Some kind of residue, because I can bust it off with my fingernail. But it's either some kind of oxidation or scale. You can kind of see right there. That's where our O-ring seats. And it comes right off with a paper towel. Yeah. Same thing. That one. Kind of feels like it was held on there with hopes and dreams. Put this little O-ring on here so tightly that it just jammed into that fitting and flattened out and wasn't an O-ring anymore. So I believe I have one of these. I did have an O-ring in my bag of tricks outside. As always, on these brass fittings, it is best to tighten them as much as you can with your hands, because you don't want to over tighten them. Being brass, they're very easy to cross thread. But that goes for those caps on the outside as well. As a new technician in the field, the gentleman that was teaching me, a very nice guy, had a little bit of a leak on one, and he told me just to tighten it as much as I could. So I tightened it as much as I could, and me being 6'2" and 270 pounds, I could tighten it a lot. And crack that thing right in two on the outboard unit. Just what I was talking about. It wanted to cross thread a little bit right there. So you always want to start those with your fingers. Get them as tight as you can. Got a little pressure on it, nitrogen pressure from the outside. I don't see anything right away. We'll let this sit for a few minutes and see if we see any micro bubbles. I still don't see any micro bubbles or anything. So I believe we have it sealed off pretty good in this particular case. So we'll go ahead, release that pressure, vacuum this guy down. unfortunately, we've missed a little bit. Got stuck on the phone for about 20 minutes talking to another client and then my boss. But we vacuumed this guy down, and being that it was just the inside coil of the line set, it didn't take us very long. Held pressure, held vacuum. So we are good to go as far as this unit's charge. I believe that indoor unit was a CBX 25 UH24, and that is calling for 6 degrees subcooling plus or minus 1. So we're just going to measure the liquid line temperature. The amount we cool after the liquid saturation point out here is our subcooling, and as I said, looking for 6 degrees plus or minus 1. And as this is an expansion valve upstairs, you have to add a little bit and let it kind of modulate a little while and stabilize out in 10 or 15 minutes usually, if the environmental conditions aren't too crazy. So we'll just be here for a moment, adding a little refrigerant, watching it, adding a little refrigerant, watching it, until we get right around that 6 degree plus or minus 1 that the unit calls for. We've charged this thing back up, and it looks like it was way lower than we thought. Must have just been dealing with vapor pressure, but essentially this thing holds from the factory, I think it was 5 pounds 14 ounces, so almost 6 pounds plus line set length. We ended up putting right at 6 pounds in it before we got where we wanted to go, so it lost a substantial amount, unfortunately, but we seem to be happy now, so we'll button it up and take off. Well, apparently on that particular case, the homeowner had another company come out in December and replace that coil upstairs for him. Didn't really have a good time with them, apparently, so he gave us a call. Don't know what the whole story was, but apparently they were not having a good time with fittings while they were there. Every one of the compression fittings on the outdoor unit for the service caps and the Schrader valves were all just barely on there. I removed them all just by using my fingers. Those are compression caps, so in order to be sealed, they have to be compressed. So always be sure to tighten your compression caps. Those are always suspect for leaking in those particular areas. Going upstairs, we found the fittings on the expansion valve was actually leaking. It looked like that they must have used the old expansion valve. Typically, when you get those coils that come with an expansion valve, sometimes they won't. Again, not really sure what the story was with it, but it looked like they used the original expansion valve and the original O-rings for that expansion valve. In the process of removing it and putting it on the new coil, looks like they damaged that lower one, probably tightened it too much, flattened it, ripped it a little bit, unscrewed it, put it back on, hoped for the best, and left, apparently. We cleaned the fittings up. There was a little residue on the upper one. Got that taken care of. Lower one, I just happened to have another O-ring, so put that on there. Those little Teflon O-rings, you do kind of have to be careful with them. I don't really trust taking them off and reusing them after the fact. So just as a little bit of knowledge and advice perhaps, once you get a new valve or a new coil with a valve, always use the new O-rings, just remove the old ones. But got that old one off, got a new one on there, did a little pressure test, everything held, vacuumed it down. I'm not sure if I got any footage of that, because I did end up talking to that particular customer and finding all this information out, and then getting on the phone with my boss about some other things, and then another customer. So I'm not sure that I actually remembered to turn the camera on throughout that entire process. But all in all, got them taken care of, and he's probably not most thrilled with the previous company, being that he had to pay me for a few hours and then pay for 6 pounds of refrigerant for that thing. But got him going, and we'll move along to the next one.